Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're uncovering the kind of shocking truth behind our cities and looking at exactly how we can redesign our built environment for a regenerative future. We live in a world of just constant construction and rapid urban growth, but we really have to ask, at what cost to our planet? So today, we're going to explore how we can radically rethink the way we build, use, and ultimately save our spaces.
To really understand the scale of the problem we're facing, look at this number right here, 35 to 45%. That is the massive, frankly mind-blowing share of the globe's natural resources that our building sector is gobbling up right now. And it doesn't even stop there. The sector also uses up to 40% of global energy. The sheer volume of raw materials, we're talking sand, gravel, limestone being constantly ripped from the earth, is just staggering. And according to projections, this raw material use is set to double by 2060.
So let's really dive into this problem. We're currently stuck in this tragic, completely linear take, make, waste model. And I want you to ask yourself a seriously baffling question. Why on earth do we build structures with materials meant to last 100 years, only to send a wrecking ball swinging just 20 years later? I mean, it makes absolutely zero sense, right? We build with incredibly durable elements, but because of rigid, inflexible designs, the very moment our human needs change, we just demolish the whole thing.
And the reality here is just stark. The building sector is single-handedly responsible for over a third of Europe's total waste and greenhouse gas emissions. Over a third. And here's the kicker. When we demolish a building, we aren't just tossing out chunks of concrete and steel. We are literally throwing away all of its embodied carbon. That's the massive amount of energy and emissions it originally took to extract, manufacture, and haul those materials to the site in the first place. Once the dust settles, that carbon footprint, completely irretrievable.
So how do we fix this? Let's move into Section 1, Designing for True Longevity. To actually design out waste, we have to talk about this ridiculous gap in how we build. Check this out. A building's concrete structure might technically be perfectly fine for a century. But changing human needs, they make that exact same building functionally obsolete in just 2 decades. A technical life of 100 years is totally useless if the functional life of the space forces it into early retirement. We're literally destroying perfectly sound structures just because they can't easily accommodate a new business or shifting community.
And that brings us to a major villain in our story today, functional obsolescence. It basically means the inability to meet the changing needs of users. When a building can't adapt, it gets needlessly demolished, completely trashing all of that incredibly valuable embodied energy we just talked about. So if we actually want our cities to be sustainable, we have got to ensure a building's functional life matches its super long technical life.
How do we combat this? Well, we design for flexibility. Think about adaptability. This is where you can effortlessly change an outdated, cramped cell office layout into a big, open, collaborative meeting space, all without touching the main structure. We call this monofunctional adaptation. The core structure is solid, high quality, and built to last, but the internal setup? It lets the people inside easily reconfigure the space as their daily requirements evolve.
But we can take it even further with convertibility. This is literally transforming the entire purpose of a space, meaning the core building never ever has to be thrown away. This is known as transfunctional adaptation. Just imagine converting a whole residential block into a sprawling office, or maybe turning a school into a hospital during a crisis. Sure, it requires a bit more forethought up front, like, oversizing spaces for future extensions, but it absolutely ensures the building remains a permanent, useful fixture in the city.
Now, to pull any of this off efficiently, we completely have to change how we assemble things in the first place. Instead of permanently gluing materials together like we're used to, we can use standardized, prefabricated parts with reversible connections. This means entire buildings can be easily taken apart like giant Lego sets. By using dry connections, we're talking nuts, bolts, and screws, we can separate components without damaging them, which means we can repair, replace, or perfectly recycle them later down the line.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, the rise of urban mining. So, once we actually design buildings to be taken apart, this concept of urban mining turns our highly developed cities into literal resource banks. It shifts extraction away from pristine nature and moves it right into our own metropolitan backyards. Instead of opening up some new quarry in a forest to get stone or chopping down more trees, we just harvest existing steel, timber, and glass directly from buildings that have reached the end of their current life cycle. You see, the materials are already there. They're just waiting to be claimed.
But here's the catch when we're evaluating urban mining. We have to really carefully balance the environmental savings of reusing these materials against the transport emissions required to actually move them around. Think about it. If we reclaim awesome materials but then ship them way across borders, we breach that environmental boundary. The transport emissions completely wipe out our carbon savings. So local sourcing, right within the city, is absolutely the key to making urban mining both environmentally and economically brilliant.
Which leads us beautifully into Section 3, preserving what we have. I want you to ask yourself a really fun question. Why tear down an abandoned factory when it could be the city's next hottest art center? To preserve our buildings intelligently, we rely on this really cool concept, Stewart Brand's shearing layers of change. It shows that a building isn't just one single solid object. It's actually a collection of independent layers, and they all have entirely different lifespans. Now, right now, roughly 75% of the existing EU building stock is old and super energy inefficient. But listen, instead of demolition, we can perform what's called deep renovations. This means upgrading the building's skin layer with stuff like insulation and triple glazing and replacing the services layer. By doing just that, we can cut energy consumption by 30 to 50%.
And those layers are absolutely crucial, because if you bury a 15-year HVAC system deep inside a 100-year concrete wall, well, you're going to have to destroy the wall just to fix the AC. Layer independence completely prevents this whole tragedy. It saves the fundamental structure so we can use it for adaptive reuse. And this is the magic right here. This is how we save buildings from the wrecking ball, by giving them entirely new functions. We're talking about turning empty retail banks in the UK into thriving community hubs, or repurposing an old textile factory in Spain into this stunning multidisciplinary art center.
Now you might be wondering, how do we keep track of all these different layers over decades of a building's life? Well, it's all about digital tools. By using clever digital material passports and 3D modeling, we can map exactly what is inside our walls today to guarantee easy disassembly and reuse tomorrow. We use building information modeling, or BIM, which acts like a living digital twin of the physical structure. And when you pair that with material passports, which are basically, identity cards for every single beam and pane of glass, we literally never lose the recipe of our buildings. It makes future urban mining just incredibly efficient.
So, the next time you walk outside, I challenge you to look at your city a little differently. Are you looking at permanent, disposable waste in the making? Or are you seeing a dynamic, regenerative bank of resources? By designing for longevity, by fully embracing urban mining, and by preserving the incredible structures we already have, we can fundamentally transform our world. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and hey, stay curious.